Good morning, everyone. My name is Samantha Paquette. I currently work for Banner Health as a biomedical IoMT specialist. We're trying to bridge the gap between the biomed world and the IT world, which I feel like it's a huge gap that's lacking in a lot of the medical field. So today we're going to be talking about embedded operating system risks. And I know that this is a field that may seem dry, but it is very important to us. And it has a lot of things that directly affect our work in HTM. As HTM professionals, we're responsible for maintaining devices and ensuring patient safety. So this presentation will take us through the technical foundations and real world risks. Has anyone found any real life applications to outdated embedded software? Anyone? Has anyone found any real life risks that they've encountered? So what are some of your guys' stories? You go first.
Common spirit was brought to its knees because it was exploited by hackers that basically had ransomware throughout the system, and they had to shut down their entire network. Where everything was running just on the localized thing, so there was no availability.
And I'm sure that had a huge impact on patient care. Anyone else? So embedded operating systems are specialized operating systems that are built into devices. They're designed for reliability, real-time performance, and they're often invisible to users. Some examples include Windows embedded, such as Windows XP embedded, Windows 7 embedded, Windows 8, as well as Linux-based systems and real-time operating systems like VxWorks and QNX. These systems are designed for reliability and real-time performance, meaning they must respond to inputs immediately and consistently. As HTM personnel, we interact with these systems during maintenance, calibration, or troubleshooting. Here we can see the percentage of medical devices running outdated or unsupported operating systems. The numbers are striking. Medical imaging devices are the highest at 83%. That means more than 4 out of every 5 imaging devices in healthcare facilities are running outdated operating systems. Legacy systems in hospitals follow at 73%. There are established systems that have been in place for years, often because they're still functional and replacing them costs too much money. Connected devices like lab analyzers and infusion pumps are at 20%. While this seems a little bit lower, remember these devices are directly connected to networks and often handle critical patient care. Finally, devices that reach end of life comprise of 14%. These are devices where manufacturers have officially ended support, meaning there's no patches, no updates, and often no replacement parts. This graph highlights the areas where our teams need to focus attention. Remember, these figures come from surveys of devices in use, not the entire global market. Now let's take a look at some real-world examples where outdated operating systems or poor cybersecurity practices caused actual incidents. These aren't theoretical risks. These are documented cases where affected patient care. WannaCry ransomware. This was my first encounter with an outdated operating system that caused issues. I was a baby biomed in the military, had no idea that it was so connected to the medical device world. This attack exploited a Windows vulnerability, encrypting files and demanding payment for decryption. In hospitals, it caused widespread disruptions, particularly affecting the UK's National Health Service. Imaging and lab equipment froze, diagnostics were delayed, and patient care was significantly impacted. Global estimates of damage range from $4 to $6 billion. Many of the affected devices were running Windows XP and other legacy operating systems. MRI system failures between 2015 and 2018. Multiple facilities reported MRI machines running Windows XP embedded that froze mid-scan. Imagine a patient in the scanner when the system crashes. Not only is the scan lost, requiring the patient to be rescheduled, but there are also safety concerns about leaving a patient in the magnetic field for too long. Lab analyzer vulnerabilities in 2018. Devices running Windows 7 embedded had vulnerable embedded operating systems that allowed unauthorized network access to several facilities. This potential compromised lab results, raising concerns about data integrity and patient safety. If an attacker can access a lab analyzer, they could potentially alter test results, leading to misdiagnosis or inappropriate treatment. Radiation therapy devices risked between 2016 and 2019. Exploits could allow attackers to modify treatment parameters, and network protections were insufficient. These devices were often isolated from networks entirely as a mitigation strategy, but this reduced monitoring capabilities and operational efficiency. Infusion pump cyber flaws from 2017 to 2020. Known cyber flaws allowed remote manipulation of drug delivery settings in lab simulations, demonstrating real risk to patient safety. The FDA issued recalls and security alerts, and hospitals were forced to implement the compensating controls and mitigation strategies. These examples show the consequences of unsupported operating systems and highlight why we must be proactive in mitigation, service planning, and coordination with IT. Why medical devices run older operating systems? You might be wondering, if these older operating systems are so risky, why do medical devices still use them? There's several legitimate reasons. First, medical devices have long life cycles. A typical imaging system might be in service for 10 to 15 years, sometimes longer. The operating system that was current when the device was manufactured may be several generations old by the time the device reaches midlife. Second, the FDA regulatory requirement creates barriers for updates. When a device receives FDA clearance, that clearance is for a specific configuration, including the operating system version. Changing the operating system may require revalidation, which is time-consuming and expensive. Third, many devices use vendor-locked software and hardware. The device manufacturer may have customized the operating system or built dependencies that make upgrading impossible without replacing the entire system. Finally, stability is often prioritized over updates. In healthcare, we need devices that work consistently and predictably. An operating system that updates, that introduces instability or compatibility issues, could be more dangerous than the security risk of staying on an older system. For HTM, this means we often maintain equipment with no available patches or updates, increasing our responsibility to implement risk mitigation strategies. Let's clarify what we mean by outdated. An outdated operating system is one that is no longer supported by the vendor and receives no security updates. This is sometimes called end of life or end of support. It may have compatibility issues with modern networks or software. For example, operating systems might not support current encryption standards, making secure communication difficult. Most critically, known vulnerabilities remain unpatched. When security researchers or hackers discover vulnerabilities in an operating system, the vendor typically releases a patch. But if the operating system is no longer supported, no patch is coming, ever. Those vulnerabilities become permanent weaknesses. From our perspective, devices may appear functional and perform their critical tasks perfectly, but they carry hidden risks. This underscores the importance of proactive maintenance, monitoring, and communication with IT teams. Cybersecurity risks of outdated embedded operating systems. Outdated embedded operating systems are a significant cybersecurity concern. They can be exploited by malware or ransomware, which may compromise device integrity or network security. Once malware gains access to one device, it can potentially spread across the network to other systems. Many legacy devices cannot run modern antivirus software. The operating system may be too old to support current security tools, or the device manufacturer may prohibit installing third-party software because it could interfere with device function or void regulatory clearance. HTM teams need to play a critical role in identifying vulnerable devices. You know your device inventory better than anyone. You know which devices are running older operating systems, which are connected to the network, and which are critical to patient care. Coordinating with IT for network segmentation is essential. If a device can't be patched or updated, isolating it on a separate network segment can limit the damage if it's compromised. Finally, ensuring service interventions don't introduce further risk is crucial. When you connect a laptop to a device for calibration or maintenance, you could inadvertently introduce malware. Using dedicated secured service tools and following proper protocols protects both the device and the network. Patient safety and clinical impact. The risks extend directly to patient safety. Operating system failures can cause device crashes or freezes during critical procedures. Imagine a ventilator or infusion pump freezing during patient care. The consequences could be life-threatening. Delayed diagnostics or treatment occur when devices are unavailable due to security incidents or system failures. If your imaging department CT scanner is down because of a ransomware attack, patients requiring emergency scans must be diverted or wait, potentially delaying critical diagnosis. Inaccurate data is another serious concern. If a compromised device displays incorrect readings or altered patient data, clinical decisions could be based on faulty information, leading to inappropriate treatment. Even temporary downtime can disrupt clinical workflows. Healthcare operates on tight schedules, and device unavailability creates cascading delays throughout the facility. For HTM, this means rapid troubleshooting, service coordination, and when necessary, recommending replacements or mitigation to reduce patient risk. Your role isn't just about keeping the devices running. It's about ensuring they're safe and reliable for patient care. Operational and financial impact. From an operational standpoint, unsupported operating systems can significantly increase downtime. When a device fails, finding parts or support for an outdated system can be challenging, extending repair times. Service costs increase because repairs may require specialized expertise or workarounds. Vendors may charge premium rates for supporting legacy systems, or they may decline to service them at all. Emergency replacements or workarounds add financial strain. If a critical device fails and can't be repaired, you may need to rent replacement equipment or purchase a new system on short notice, often at unfavorable times. HTM teams are often the first line of defense in managing these operational and financial impacts. By planning preventive maintenance schedules, tracking device life cycles, and advocating for timely replacements, you can minimize unexpected costs and disruptions. This slide covers the regulatory and compliance concerns tied to medical devices with embedded operating systems, and these are increasingly important as regulators focus more attention on cybersecurity. First, the FDA provides cybersecurity guidance that stresses proactive risk management, secure design, and timely updates. The FDA expects manufacturers and healthcare facilities to identify cybersecurity risks and implement mitigation strategies. Failing to follow these recommendations can lead to enforcement actions, device recalls, or restrictions on use. The Joint Commission also expects healthcare organizations to manage cybersecurity as part of overall risk management. That means identifying device vulnerabilities, training staff on security protocols, and having mitigation plans in place. During accreditation surveys, surveyors may ask about your cybersecurity program and how you manage device risks. CMS has data protection expectations that intersect with patient privacy and HIPAA compliance. If an embedded device is compromised and patient data is exposed, it can trigger HIPAA breach notification requirements and lead to regulatory penalties, including significant fines. Finally, audit and documentation are critical. Regulators want clear records showing risk assessments, patches applied, and incident responses and mitigation steps taken. Gaps in documentation can result in fines, corrective action plans, or operational restrictions. So overall, cybersecurity risks in embedded operating systems aren't just technical issues. They carry significant regulatory compliance implications that HTM professionals must manage proactively. Your documentation and risk management practices are your defense in an audit or investigation. Risk mitigation strategies. HTM teams can employ several mitigation strategies to manage the risk of outdated embedded operating systems. Lifecycle planning is essential. Schedule replacements or upgrades proactively rather than waiting for devices to fail or become security liabilities. Develop a multi-year capital plan that prioritizes replacing devices with unsupported operating systems. Network segmentation limits exposure by isolating vulnerable devices on separate network segments. Work with your IT team to ensure medical devices aren't on the same network as general business systems. Strict access controls and monitoring helps prevent unauthorized access. Limit who can physically and remotely access devices. Use strong authentication and monitor devices activity for suspicious behavior. Vendor service contracts ensure timely maintenance and access to patches or updates when available. Negotiate contracts that include cybersecurity support and clear response times for security incidents. These strategies allow us to manage risks without compromising patient care. Even if you can't immediately replace devices with an outdated operating system, you can implement layers of protection to reduce risk. So what's our role in all of this? HTM teams are central to managing embedded operating system risks. We track assets, maintain device inventories, plan maintenance schedules, and implement lifecycle strategies. You know which devices are most critical, which are most vulnerable, and which are approaching end of life. IT teams secure the network and enforce cybersecurity policies. They implement network segmentation, monitor for threats, and respond to security incidents. Collaboration between HTM and IT is essential. You need to speak each other's language and understand each other's priorities. Vendors provide patches, updates, and technical support. They know their devices best and can provide guidance on security configurations, compensating controls, and upgrade paths. Maintain strong relationships with your vendors and hold them accountable for cybersecurity support. Effective communication and collaboration between HTM, IT, and vendors is essential to ensure device safety and uptime. Regular meetings, shared documentation, and clear escalation procedures help ensure everyone is aligned and responsive when issues arrive. Signs a medical device may be compromised. Let's talk about the warning signs that a medical device may be compromised. Early detection is critical for patient safety and limiting damage. Unusual behavior. This includes devices that freeze, crash, or restart unexpectedly. You might also notice slower performance than what's typical for that device. If a device that normally boots in 30 seconds suddenly takes 5 minutes, that's a red flag. Unexpected network activity is another key warning sign. If a device is communicating with an unknown IP address or you see increased or unusual network traffic, investigate immediately. Medical devices typically have predictable network patterns. They communicate with specific servers or systems. Deviations from that pattern warrant investigation. Security alerts or log changes are critical indicators. This could be antivirus or monitoring system alerts, unrecognized login attempts, or changes in system logs that you can't account for. Many facilities now have security information and event management systems that monitor device logs. Pay attention to alerts from these systems. Unauthorized configuration changes should always raise concerns. If device settings have been modified without proper approval or software or firmware updates appear that have not been scheduled, investigate immediately. Maintain change control documentation so you know what changes are authorized. Data or output irregularities include incorrect readings, inconsistent results, or any missing or altered patient data. If clinicians report that a device is giving unexpected results, don't assume it's just a calibration issue. Consider the possibility of a compromise. And most importantly, if you notice any of these signs, report them immediately through proper channels. Don't wait to be certain. Early detection is critical for patient safety and data security. Immediate response steps. If you suspect a medical device has been compromised, follow these FDA-aligned steps. Do not power off the device immediately. Although this seems counterintuitive, but shutting down the device can destroy forensic evidence our cybersecurity team needs to investigate and prevent future attacks. Volatile memory is lost when a device powers down, and that memory may contain critical information about how the compromise occurred. If it's safe to do so, disconnect the device from the network to contain the threat and prevent it from spreading to other systems. This might mean unplugging a network cable or disabling Wi-Fi. The goal is to isolate the device while preserving the evidence. Remove the device from clinical use immediately. Patient safety is our top priority. Find an alternative device to continue care if needed. Don't risk patient safety by continuing to use a potentially compromised device. Notify IT, cybersecurity, and HTM immediately. Time is critical. The faster our team responds, the better we can contain the threat and minimize the damage. Know your facility's escalation procedures and contact information before an incident occurs. And make sure you document everything, including the time, the symptoms, the alerts, actions taken. This documentation is essential for investigations, regulatory compliance, and lessons learned. Take photos if it's appropriate, save log files, and write down exactly what you observed. Your quick response protects both patient safety and our systems. Investigation. Once a device is reported compromised, here's what happens during the investigation and remediation process. Our IT team immediately begins network and malware analysis. They'll examine network traffic, identify malicious software, and determine how the device is compromised and what systems may have been affected. The forensic work is critical to understanding the scope of the incident. In many cases, we'll need to involve the device vendor. Here's an important point to understand. Medical devices aren't like laptops that we can simply wipe and re-image ourselves. These devices often have specialized firmware and operating systems that require vendors' expertise and authorization to modify. The vendor may need to perform firmware or operating system re-imaging to ensure the device is clean and functioning properly. The device may also need patching or security updates. Sometimes a compromise happens because the device is running outdated software with known vulnerabilities. Part of remediation is ensuring all security patches are applied if they're available. Our security team conducts a thorough review of logs and potential data exposure. We need to understand what data may have been accessed or compromised, which is critical for regulatory reporting and patient notification if necessary. If protected health information was exposed, a HIPAA breach notification requirement may be triggered. Finally, we apply lessons learned to future device risk mitigation. Every incident teaches us something. We use these insights to strengthen our security posture, update policies, improve monitoring, and prevent similar incidents across our entire device fleet. This continuous improvement approach is essential to staying ahead of evolving threats. Recovery. Once we've contained a security incident involving an outdated embedded operating system, the recovery phase is critical. This isn't just getting devices back online, it's about doing so safely. First, we apply system patching, security updates and patches to address any vulnerabilities. But the challenge with medical devices is that many embedded systems can't accept standard patches without manufacturer approval. So we must work closely with vendors to obtain validated patches that won't compromise device functionality or FDA clearance. Next is device restoration, where we systematically return each device to full operational functionality through firmware updates, configuration restoration, and ensuring all clinical features work as intended. Patient safety depends on complete functionality. A partially restored device could be more dangerous than no device at all. The third step is strengthening our defenses. We can't restore to the previous vulnerable state. We implement enhanced security controls like network segmentation, improved access controls, and compensating controls for devices that can't be patched. We're essentially building a fortress around vulnerable devices. Documentation is essential throughout the entire recovery process. We record every detail that was compromised, what actions were taken, what patches were applied, what testing was performed. This creates an audit trail for regulatory bodies and helps us learn from these incidents. Before any device returns to patient care, rigorous validation testing is mandatory. We must verify the device operates correctly from both clinical and security perspectives through functional testing, security scanning, and simulation testing. We might run test patients, verify calibration, and confirm the device communicates properly with our systems. Finally, we safely reintroduce devices to the clinical environment with enhanced monitoring. We watch for anomalies, unusual network traffic, or performance issues. Recovery isn't complete when the device is turned on. It's complete when we're confident it's both clinically effective and secure. The key takeaway is recovery from embedded operating system vulnerabilities requires a methodical, safety-first approach that balances clinical needs with cybersecurity requirements. Preventing future compromises. Now let's talk about how we're working to prevent these compromises from happening in the first place. Prevention is always better than response. We implement network segmentation for medical devices. This means our medical devices operate on separate isolated network segments from our general IT systems. Think of it like having different neighborhoods. If one area has an issue, it doesn't automatically spread to others. This containment strategy is one of our strongest defenses. We conduct regular vulnerability assessments. Our security team continuously scans and evaluates our medical devices for known vulnerabilities and weaknesses. This proactive approach helps us identify and fix problems before attackers can exploit them. These assessments should be scheduled regularly and after any significant changes to the device or network environment. Strong access control and authentication are essential. We implement strict controls over who can access medical devices and their systems. These include multi-factor authentication, role-based access, and ensuring default passwords are changed. Limiting access reduces the attack surface significantly. Every person who has access to a device is a potential vulnerability, so we grant access only when necessary and review access permissions regularly. We maintain continuous device monitoring. Our systems are watching medical device activity 24/7, looking for those warning signs we discussed earlier. Unusual behavior, unexpected network traffic, and suspicious activity. Early detection means faster response and less damage. Finally, we have a lifecycle replacement strategy for unsupported systems. Devices running outdated, unsupported operating systems or firmware that manufacturers no longer patch are ticking time bombs. We prioritize replacing or upgrading these systems because they simply cannot be adequately secured. This requires capital planning, budget advocacy, and sometimes difficult conversations about replacing devices that still technically work from a clinical perspective, but are security liabilities. This is the medical device cybersecurity incident response flow. This slide visualizes our complete incident response workflow for medical device cyber incidents. We follow a 4-phase approach: detect, contain, investigate, and recover, each represented by a distinct color to emphasize the different nature of activities in each phase. In the detect phase, orange, we're watching for unusual device behavior, security alerts and logs, and suspicious network activity. These are our early warning signs of a potential compromise. Detection can come from an automated monitoring system, user reports, or routine maintenance observations. Once we identify a potential compromise, we move immediately to contain, which is red, where we disconnect the device from the network, remove it from clinical use, and notify both IT and HTM teams immediately. These immediate actions prevent the incident from spreading. Containment is about limiting damage and protecting other systems and patients. The investigate phase, blue, involves an in-depth analysis, forensic analysis, firmware and operating system assessment, and data breach evaluation. This is where we determine what happened, how it happened, and the extent of the compromise. Investigation takes time and expertise, but it's essential for effective remediation. Finally, in the recovery phase, green, we apply fixes through system patching, device restoration, and strengthening our defenses to prevent reoccurrence. Recovery isn't just about getting back to normal. It's about getting to a better, more secure state. Throughout this entire process, 3 critical activities can run continuously at the bottom. We document the incident, analyze the impact, and apply fixes. And importantly, every incident feeds into our lessons learned process, which helps us improve future device security. Here are some key takeaways. To summarize, for HTM professionals, embedded operating systems are critical but often invisible components of devices. You may service devices for years without thinking about the underlying operating system, but it's there and it matters. Outdated operating systems increase risks to patient safety, cybersecurity, and operational efficiency. These aren't just IT problems. They're patient safety problems and operational problems that directly affect your work. Upgrades are challenging, requiring coordination with vendors and IT. You can't just update a medical device operating system like you would a laptop. It requires planning, validation, and collaboration. Mitigation strategies and proactive lifecycle planning are essential. Even when you can't immediately fix the problem, you can reduce the risk throughout network segmentation, access controls, monitoring, and planning for eventual replacement. HTM teams play a central role in ensuring devices remain safe, functional, and compliant. You are the experts on medical devices in your facility. Your knowledge, vigilance, and proactive management are essential to patient safety and cybersecurity. I'll stop here and open the floor for questions. I'd be happy to discuss real-world challenges teams face with legacy operating systems, strategies for mitigation, or planning for lifecycle upgrades.